Picked capture loading. Heretic Astartes detected. Designation.
Redacted.
You saw nothing, citizen.
Greetings, Imperial citizens. Welcome back to another episode of Splat Hobbies. It's your host, Jimmy. My first issue of White Dwarf was this one, 254.
This issue from February 2001 was fascinating to young me. I read it cover to cover every day for a month, but one story gripped me even more than the others, the story of the Dark Angels. It was the first of White Dwarf's famous Index Astartes entries for the Space Marine Legions. It was worth every penny to me.
It cost £3.50. Imagine that.
So this White Dwarf comes from a time when my pocket money was only 50p a week, which I think was supposed to be some sort of lesson from my parents about the true value of money, but really it just encouraged me and my sister to form a union.
This issue started a fascination with the fallen Dark Angels that persists to this day. I've had several attempts at making a fallen Dark Angel army, although I never seem to have been able to get it right.
I know what the problem is. There's so many ways to do the Fallen. Are they traitors, corrupted by chaos? Are they loyalists, trying to do good despite the circumstances? Mine are going to be a little bit of both. So how do we build ourselves some Fallen? Well, seeing as they were whisked away by the ruinous powers just after the Horus Heresy, we should expect them to be in older Mark's power armour. Here I've used one of the new Mark 6 Marines released as part of the Age of Darkness box. I cut off his torso with a sharp blade, because I want to replace it with something else. I then glue his other leg on and stick him to his base. I attach the back of his torso. I took this torso front with a tabard from the now sadly out of production Black Templar's Firstborn upgrade sprue, and very carefully shaved off the Black Templar's icon on the front. And now we're running into our first problem. The torso front doesn't fit the torso back. These two parts are separated by almost 2 decades of scale creep. Taking the nuclear option, I bisect this poor marine rather than using any green stuff to fill the gaps. 23 years of hobbying has given me enough spare parts to solve this problem easily. Wincing in sympathy, I scrape his crotch off. I then stick the assembled torso to the legs and wait a while for the join to become stronger. I attach this power fist from the Dark Angels Company Veterans kit, which if it isn't out of production by the time you watch this, it soon will be, so grab them while you can. I drilled out the barrel of a Heresy era bolt pistol. I then glued this to a Firstborn arm and attached it to his body. This small icon on a rope was carefully detached and then stuck onto his chest where the chains that held the Black Templar icon meet. Appropriate shoulder pads were chosen and stuck on. I was listening to the audiobook of The Fantastic Descent of Angels by Mitchell Scanlon while doing this, which you can find on Audible. Please sponsor us, Audible, thank you. And it reminded me exactly why I fell in love with that Index Astartes article decades ago.
I was fascinated by tales of Luther's betrayal and the enigmatic watchers in the dark.
I take one of the new Khorne Berserker backpacks and declaw it with my clippers before shaving the stumps and mould lines flat. I cut the backpack decoration off one of the pieces from the company veterans kit and then offer praise to the dark gods that they didn't ping off into the same dimension as pen lids and odd socks. I glued this to the top of the Khorne Berserker backpack. I'm using the Chaos Codex for these guys, so choosing a Chaos backpack helped change the silhouette and would prevent people from mistaking them for Imperial Marines. A smattering of accessories followed. I had a purity seal for 2 reasons. Number 1, my guys think that they're pure even though they're really not. And 2, it's a chance to add some colour on a model that will be primarily black. A Mark 6 Beaky Company Veterans helmet finished him off. I thought his power fist looked a bit like he was cheering his favourite sport ball team on, so I added this severed head from the Orc Boys kit to his fist to make it look like he is holding aloft a grisly trophy. A Chaos Space Marine top knot was then glued to the top of the fist. The next 3 guys were fairly simple. I took another Mark 6 body and glued a Firstborn Black Templar chainsword arm to it. In the lore of my Fallen, they successfully masqueraded as a loyal chapter called the Chainbreakers for some time before they were discovered by the Unforgiven and forced to flee into the Eye of Terror. I thought adding a few Black Templar weapons with chains would reinforce this old chapter name. Plus, they look cool. I used a Ravenwing bolt pistol so it didn't look too much like a Black Templar. I picked this old Chaos backpack, but it doesn't have the right fitting on the back, so I had to use clippers to cut away the fitting on the torso piece and then glue this part onto the flat area, making sure it isn't wonky. A screaming head was added. I chose this one because it looks like he's bellowing orders to his brother Marines, encouraging them forward. I cover him in more accessories than a teenage girl let loose in Claire's, and in a rather awkward segue, I use these nail art beads, which I totally didn't get in Claire's, please sponsor us Claire's, thank you, to add molecular bonding studs to his left shin plate. The next guy uses the body of one of the new Mark III Marines. A 3rd edition Chaos backpack gets glued on next. I glued an old flamer from the Mark IV kit to an arm from the older version of the Mark III kit, and then stuck that to his torso from the new Mark III kit. All of these parts look comfortably in scale with each other. An old Mark III head was used because it looks knightly, and as we all know, Dark Angels are descended from the knightly orders of Caliban. Maybe that's why I love them so much. Knights look cool, Dark Angels look cool, Chaos looks cool, and potentially chaotic Dark Angels look cool squared. All the more reason to play them.
Also, it helps that my landlord plays Dark Angels, and I enjoy annoying him. For some reason, my rent has only ever gone up.
Another Mark III body was chosen and a Khorne Berserker backpack was stuck on. Firstborn arms were added, one readying a grenade, the other holding a chainsword. This proper angry head was chosen, although I think he's going to have trouble pulling the pin on the grenade with his mouth being an armoured rebreather. For the sergeant, I chose this Deathwatch cloak. I got a bit brutal with the clippers and scalpel, otherwise only a Deathwatch torso front would fit on him, and that's not the bit that I had in mind. I used this Mark V breastplate from the Firstborn Tactical Marines set and stuck it to the cloak. I needed some appropriately scaled Firstborn legs, so this sacrificial Space Crusade sergeant has been chosen to donate his. Cutting through him with a knife wasn't working, and I started getting flashbacks to the last time I tried this, which resulted in 7 stitches. I cut through him in the last 2 centimetres of my desk with a razor saw. I stuck him to his base with plastic glue, although this old Space Crusade plastic seems to need a bit longer to bond. He's too short for his torso, so I used a bit of styrene rod to add some height. I stuck it on with methyl ethyl ketone. To cover the gap, I glued this Black Templar loincloth in place. I used accessories to cover any areas where you could still see the styrene rod. Chaos backpack. Two Firstborn arms were chosen that after a lot of swearing were lined up properly to take the hilt of a greatsword. Exciting news! The channel now has a Patreon. For just $1 a month you can help offset the cost of making these videos and help the channel grow. If that sounds like something you'd be willing to contribute to, please check out the link to our Patreon in the description below. If not, then likes, comments and subscribes are all massively appreciated. I cut the sword from the new Dark Angels Terminator kit and stuck it on, bracing it so it dried without wilting. I'm a big fan of sergeants having banners, so I added one from the company veterans kit. I mixed up a little ball of green stuff to make his cowl. I don't like it when they're wearing just hoods without something to attach it to. Like, is he wearing his dressing gown under his armour? Obviously, it's far more realistic for the 8-foot superhuman immortal killing machine to wear his dressing gown over his nigh invincible armour. It just occurred to me that Warhammer might be a little silly. I used a silicone sculpting tool to add folds in his cowl. I used superglue to stick sand to his base, and added a few small rocks and a skull because Warhammer. And with that, they're finished. Let's have a look.
So that was another episode of Splat Hobbies. Thank you for tuning in. I've been your host, Jimmy. If you like what you saw today, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Maybe give this video a like. Leave a comment below. Don't forget also to check out our Patreon if you feel like we've earned your financial contributions. Let's face it, model soldiers are more expensive than they really should be, and to run a channel like this requires a hefty amount of model soldiers. So until next time, may your bristles never fray. See you later.
This costume's fucking ridiculous.